Hello everyone, this is Dr. Lewis Clark back with you again today for part two of how to take care of your thyroid and how functional health care plays a role in good thyroid function and recovery of thyroid problems. So last time, if you were with us, we went through the normal physiology, meaning how the thyroid works. Today we're going to have a little bit of a review of that. Then I'm going to take you to what is the key to really getting your body healthy concerning optimal thyroid function. So first of all, if you remember from last time, the thyroid is a gland there in the neck, and it produces a hormone, but it has to be turned on by the brain. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary, the hypothalamus produces an enzyme, a hormone that turns on the pituitary. That's called thyroid releasing hormone. And then the pituitary secretes the enzyme that you're probably familiar with called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. This hormone then goes down to the thyroid to initiate production of thyroid hormone. Now, very important to remember that 93% of the hormone that is made from your thyroid gland is T4. Only 7% is T3. And if you remember, T3 is the active form. So today I'm going to take you through the process of how the body takes this hormone that's produced, converts it to where it can be usable, and then how it gets into the cell for optimal function. So follow with me here. So what happens after T4, T3? We talked about that, TRH, we talked about TSH, and then the thyroid is going to produce the hormone. Now, this is very important here. The TPO is an enzyme, okay, that is used to bind iodines together. So T4 means there's 4 iodines, and T3 means there's 3 iodines, okay? So that's important because it has to be the smaller size to actually enter the cell. But it's also important because iodine must be present. Now, I will tell you that the number one cause of thyroid problems across the world is iodine deficiency. However, that is hardly ever, if ever, the problem in America because our diets are rich in iodine and we have it even added into our foods like salt and things like that. So iodine is not typically the problem. However, TPO is commonly a problem because it is a spot where an autoimmune attack and condition can happen called Hashimoto's. And autoimmunity is the number one reason for thyroid problems in America. And we'll get into that more in our next video. So with that said, now we go from this slide here to our next slide, which shows us that T4 we've already seen, T3, yes, there's the active form. Now what's going to happen with that? It's going to go into the bloodstream and it's going to need to get on this boat you see here called TBG, thyroid binding globulin. It's going to have to go somewhere and be converted. Now you'll see 60% of that conversion is going to occur right there in the liver. 20% will happen in the gut. So the TBG is going to transport the thyroid hormone, the T4 hormone, to the liver. The liver is then going to take an enzyme and take one of the iodines off. And then it's going to be T3. And then it's going to be the active form of hormone. Now, this conversion can also happen in the gut. Now, for it to happen in the gut, there are 3 things that must be present in your intestines. Number 1, probiotics, which are commonly deficient. Number 2, sulfur. And number 3 is good hydrochloric acid production. So those are very commonly deficient. So we don't have good conversion many times from T4 to T3 in either our liver or in our gut. And it's not really a thyroid problem. In other words, your thyroid is doing its job, but you still have thyroid symptoms. much more to come on that in the next video. So now your T3 is into the bloodstream and it's going to tissues. At some point, it's going to become free. T3 free means that the hormone is now not bound anymore to the thyroid binding globulin. It's gotten off of the boat, it's off the transport, and now it's ready to go into the cell. And very important though, you remember that it has a thyroid receptor, which you can see up here, that must give it access into the nucleus. This is the only time that actual thyroid hormone can be used is when it gets to the T3 free form and then enters in through the receptor and gets to the nucleus of the cell. If that doesn't happen, doesn't matter how much hormone you take, how much you make, nothing matters because it has to get into the cell to be effective. Okay, so that's the key. The key is getting T3 into the cell. And how do you know if it's happening? And how do you know where it's not happening right? If that's the case, the key is blood test and doing the right test and looking at the right numbers. And this is literally the difference between success and failure. And unfortunately, in the conventional medical model today, the only hormones that are ever checked regarding thyroid is TSH and maybe T4. But you don't know if you're getting it converted. You don't know if you're getting it into the cell. There's a ton of things you just can't tell from those simple tests. So doing the proper test, looking at the right numbers, is the difference between success and failure when it comes to optimal thyroid function. So I agree with Dr. Karazian and his quote here that this is the most mismanaged of hypothyroid is the management of the blood test, or the lack of proper testing and the lack of looking at the right numbers. So, well, thank you for getting these first two videos done. Be sure, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, do that and click the bell. Make sure you get your notification on the next one, where we go into where do things go wrong and what are optimal numbers, and why do we look at the wrong numbers. We're going to go into all that next time we see you. And until then, live life well and God bless.